All right, folks, today I'm going to introduce you to the nervous system and most importantly, the neuron. So first, I think it's useful to just point out to you what the nervous system is in case you're not really familiar with the definition of the nervous system. So the nervous system itself includes, the central nervous system includes the brain and spinal cord. And then the peripheral nervous system is everything outside of that. So you see all these nerves coming down. These are sensory and motor nerves. Motor nerves allow you to move. Sensory nerves bring information in from the outside world and up into the central nervous system into the brain for processing. The brain then can respond by sending messages down and out into the body, and the body can move in response to that. And so the nervous system is a specialized communication system in the body, and it is run by neurons. So neurons are simply nerve cells. And so there are those cells in the nervous system that are communicating with one another and allowing us to do the things we need to do in the world. They are specialized cells. There are a number of different types of neurons. If you take further courses in neuroscience, you'll see there's all sorts of ways to categorize neurons. For our purposes, we are going to focus on three different types. The first type being the sensory neurons, which are the input neurons, and they bring in information from the outside world. So if you imagine me touching my table that's in front of me, I'm able to sense that from sensory nerves. There's nerves in my fingertips and my skin that bring in that information to the brain, and the brain then processes it. If it wants to respond in some way, then it uses motor neurons, and it sends a message out to the motor neurons, and I'm able to, say, move my hand around on the smooth surface of the table or pick my hand up in response to having put it down. These are the output neurons. They're getting us to respond to the environment. And then we have the interneurons, and these neurons, their job is to kind of go between the various neurons and help connect certain types of neurons to one another. Now what I've done is I've provided you with this image as a separate file. I would go ahead and print that before you continue on with this video. This here is the neuron, and we're going to do some labeling, and I'm going to do some describing for you as we go through. Now in this picture you actually see one full neuron and the parts of two other neurons. So if you take a close look, you can probably figure out where the one whole neuron is. This is one cell here. This is part of another cell that's connecting to the cell to send a message. And this is another neuron that this main one is connecting to. And so this type of neurons have different shapes based on their functions and where they're located. And this one here would be what a motor neuron looks like. And so we're going to do some labeling of this motor neuron. Here in the middle is the nucleus. Just like any cell, a neuron has a nucleus, which contains a lot of its important genetic information and other things common to all cells. And here, these branching structures are dendrites. Dendrite means tree, so they are appropriately named dendrites. They branch out, and their job is to provide more surface area for other neurons to connect to and send messages to. So this just broadens the area, their ability to receive messages. Along here, you see what I've drawn in. It kind of looks like little spikes on roses. They're kind of pointy and kind of sticking out the way I've drawn them. In reality, they're maybe a little bit more rounded. But what the dendritic spines do is they allow, again, for an expansion of surface area. And as these little spines come out from the dendrites, they are able to make even more spaces to have contacts with other neurons. Now, some neurons make fewer contacts, but many neurons will connect with thousands of other neurons. So they need a lot of surface area in order to make those connections. Here's an image that I got off Wikipedia of kind of how here's the dendrite itself, and here's these little spines coming off. And you see they're labeling this a spine head. So you can see how much surface area that adds to this one little space. Suddenly there's all this additional surface area. Next up, we have our cell body, or soma. Now, soma is a word that means body. And so this kind of whole area that underlies where the dendrites are coming off of is the cell body. Here, you see the myelin sheath. Now, the myelin sheath are these little chunks of fatty substance that wrap around this underlying long singular fiber, which we will see shortly has its own name and is called the axon. And so this myelin sheath wraps around that fiber and acts to insulate it. On myelin sheath we will discuss a little bit more later on. In between these bits of fat, these myelin sheaths, are little exposed area of axon. And those, when they're exposed like this in between myelin sheaths, are called the nodes of Ranvier. And they become important in neural communication speed, which we won't touch on as much in this course, but if you take a biological psychology class or a neuroscience class, you'll talk about that a lot more. I'm going to remove some of these labels and start fresh so we can kind of see some more of these labels as they come up. The axon hillock is this little part right here, and the axon hillock is where the messages from all these other neurons are kind of totaled up. And if a neuron is going to send a message to pass on to the other neurons down the line, then it's going to initiate this from the axon hillock. You see it makes kind of like a little hill shape here. Our next one is the axon, and that I've put in pink runs underneath the myelin sheath through here and comes down to this end where it then branches even further. And these branching structures of the axon are called axon collaterals. And those axon collaterals will branch sometimes many times. And at their ends, they have what are called axon terminals, or terminal buttons, or boutons, or end bulbs. These little fellas here are little tiny swellings. See how they look a little swollen? They're little tiny swellings that help to pass on the message, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in just a minute in another video. So a message in a neuron will be initiated from the cell body. You'll kind of make a decision about it. It'll initiate the message. It'll shoot it down the axon. It'll come into the collaterals and branch off. It doesn't diminish in strength when it does this. Each branch gets the same strength as it comes down. And then this little terminal button, or axon terminal, will then pass that message on to the next neuron in line. I'm going to show you just an image of some neuron staining. So here's kind of a stain. This is one type of neuron, how it looks when in reality. Here's other neurons and how they look in reality with their branching structures and their axons. So I'm going to end this video here, and we're going to pick up in the next video on more about neural communication.